I'm Jeff Miller, and I'm here with Nancy and John Erickson and Carol Lubbs, and we're talking about the book, The Cliff. This podcast is our chance to feature the authors that we work with at Indie Christian Book because everybody that we work with has a calling from God to share a message, and these guys are no different. They have a powerful message, a powerful story, and I'm excited to talk with them about it today. Welcome, guys.
Welcome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
John and Nancy are in the book. The book is about something that happened to them. It's about their life and their faith and their story. Carol is actually John's sister and is in the book. But it was Carol's idea to write the book, I believe. At least Carol's the
Right.
one that reached out to me and had some passion and vision for the book and got us involved and has been co-writing the book with me. So let's hear from you guys about what this book is about, what it's meant to you, what has it been like seeing the life that you've lived put into the book. The book is not just about this one story, but it kind of takes at least your whole married life and family life into account. So, John and Nancy, why don't you talk to me about what that's been like for you?
Well, I think the first thing when Carol said something about she would like to see this in a book, and I thought, okay, this is just me. This is just something that happened to us. And I think, Jeff, when you finally came to our house to talk to us about it the first time, I asked you, do you think this is really worthy of a book? And you said, well, yes. Yes, I do. And I thought, okay, here we go. And we're just gonna go with it and pray about it and see how far this takes us. And I think John has always said, we'll go as far as Jesus wants to go with us on this, and we'll just be with him on whatever journey this takes. So I was willing, but then still had question marks and a little bubble off at the top of my head, like, what is this going to mean? And what is this going to be like? But Jeff, you've made the experience very, um, you've just helped us live it out, and you've been real and honest with us. And we've tried to be that same way with you about our lives and where God has taken us on this journey, and just willing to share it. If it gives glory to God, then we're willing to be part in it.
Well, it was really neat to see how God's hand was involved in all of that, and at the time that it was happening, and then to go back and put it down in writing as to what God was doing, the way He did it was overwhelming, and I thought it very worthy of a book.
Definitely. So before I get to you, Carol, I want to ask you the same question, but before I do, John and Nancy, what happened? Why are we talking about? Why did we write this book? What was the main thing that led to this?
The the incident that started this book, inspiration for this book, was this happened. Well, now it's been 5 years ago, and it was during the at the start of the COVID journey that we were all on. It um, the COVID experience for us was one of a lot of emotion. It split um, some dynamics in friendships in our church, with our pastor and the congregation at that time. And our pastor was a dear friend of ours. and we saw it, we saw divisions in the church that had never been there before, and I do not like conflict. I
Hmm.
like everybody to be happy and everybody to get along, and the these, um these relationships were relationships that I had, and I couldn't look on it. I was involved in it, and it really bothered me. It really hurt my
Yeah.
heart to see these relationships change so drastically, and to people for people to be at odds with each other over something like this, that it was not, um, a life and death situation. It was just relationships that were being changed because of this disease that happened. And, I just felt, compelled to just go out and be by myself. It ended up to be the day after Easter.
Yep.
We had had part of our family here, and we had had a lovely day, and the day after Easter, I was just, doing some, things around my house, and it was a absolutely beautiful day, and I thought, Lord, I'm just gonna go out and be with you by myself. And, right past our yard, there is, a field, and around the field, we take our four-wheeler and we, look out in a beautiful part of nature. There is, trees, and then there's a cliff that looks down on a beautiful little creek, and you could, we we go back there pretty often just to enjoy nature, and I thought this would be a lovely place for me to just take my Bible and go out and spend it with Jesus.
Yeah.
So, on this beautiful day, I thought I'm gonna take this day and go out and just sit by myself. John was, he was a, associate pastor at that time, and he had gone into work at church, and I just thought, "I'm gonna take this beautiful day, I'm gonna go outside and spend it with the Lord." I'm gonna read in Philippians. That was a choice that I had made because 'cause I'd read through that book quite a bit before and had done a Bible study on it. There were 2 women that were not getting along, and Paul was giving some instruction, about them, and, about them that they were both workers for the Lord, but had disagreement and talked about that. I thought,
Yeah.
I'm gonna start there. I'm gonna read through Philippians and pray, just be by myself and see if I could find something to encourage me in this conflict that was going on in the world that I had with
Mm,
relationships and a church and things. So,
mm.
that was the reason for me going out to, the place where I later fell, called the cliff, and, that was the
So
beginning of
you
this
went.
story.
So you and spoiler alert, you lived through this whole thing, but you but you're type 1 diabetic
Yep.
and left without your stuff because you weren't expecting to fall 70 feet
Right.
off a cliff and spend the next 12 hours, 14 hours, whatever it was, without that stuff. So you went, perched yourself on the edge of this cliff, and then what happened while you were reading?
So I read through Philippians several times and I felt comforted by the words that Paul wrote. And the sun was shining down and it was so beautiful out there. The trees, some of the, on the cliff, you could see some of the trees were very close to the edge. and the roots were exposed, probably after, um, wind and rain and things like that, and it was just so beautiful. There was a really neat place that I wanted to get to that I kinda inched closer to where I could sit right among the roots, just like the roots were giving me a hug. And, it was just a absolutely beautiful place to sit, and, as the sun was shining down on me, I took my jacket off because it was starting to get kinda warm, and I think I just started feeling I remember feeling sleepy, and then after that, I don't remember anything. So it could have
Mm,
been that I fell asleep. It could have been that my blood sugar went low and my blood sugar crashed. I could have become unconscious because my blood sugar was low, but for some reason, I lost consciousness, fell asleep, lost consciousness, whatever, and I ended up falling
mm.
down the cliff
Okay,
where it
let's
was so beautiful.
so let's pause that, and then John, meanwhile, has no idea. This happens around 10 or 11 in the morning, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, John, talk about from your side what that experience was.
So, I went into church, I was gonna teach the Sunday after Easter, so I was going through, what my message would be that following Sunday. So, I was reading, in Philippians and, was reading over some of the same things that Nancy was out on the
But we hadn't talked about
we
that.
hadn't talked about it at all. Um, so I was, reading about the power of the resurrection, and suffering with Christ. And so I worked on that. When I end of the day, I came home, which was probably 3 o'clock or a little after. Came into the house. Nance is not in here. The car's in the garage. Her phone is on the counter. Her glucose meter is on the counter. The dog is here, but she's not. So no big deal. I walked around the inside of the house, called for her, nowhere to be seen anywhere in the house. Went outside, did a quick, walk around the house on the outside. Did not see her. Asked the dog where she was, and he had no idea.
Mm.
And I kept, getting the perimeter out a little bit farther to see if I could locate where she was. So, started to get a little concerned, because she's not anywhere close, and, so I took the opportunity to check with some neighbors to see if they saw her. Nobody saw her. We had our police officer from, our town, made a loop around our, cul-de-sac, and, so I jumped in the truck and went and located him and, told him what was going on, and he basically said, "Well, for missing persons, you usually have to wait, 24 hours before, you can report it and, get any action in that." So, I explained to him that it was probably something more than that since everything that she had here was, a way of, checking her blood sugar, making a phone call, the car, everything, nothing made sense. He decided that, maybe we should see if we can, expand this out a little bit and kind of get figured out exactly what was going on. So, we kind of got the ball rolling. I called our sons, um, Ben up in DeKalb, and he said that he would come if I needed him to. And I think he basically jumped in the truck and headed this way. um, called our son in Texas, and he started looking on phone records and phone calls that she was getting to see if there was something along that line. I think basically it was all spam calls that he could find. Got hold of my sister Carol, and she headed down, and it just kind of just got everything rolling.
So Carol, that's where you came in. John just mentioned that he called you. What were you doing?
Well, the first phone call I got was from our cousin Judy to ask me what was going on with Nancy. And then I tried calling John, and he didn't answer. Then eventually he called me back. And as soon as he did and said Nancy was missing, that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to go. And my and my husband said, "Oh, they'll find her by the time you get to Wynette." And so so he decided not to go. So I grabbed a flashlight and a jacket and headed down, and I know I was speeding. But then I ended up getting behind a car, and they were also speeding, and I thought, "That looks like, Steve Mason," and it was, and that is Ben's father-in-law. And, we pulled in, and by that time, I think half of Wynette or most of Wynette was already there, and they had somebody blocking off the road. There were a couple carts blocking off the road into the cul-de-sac, and they were not gonna let us in. And so Angela said, "Well, this is John's sister," and she identified herself and Steve, and so they let us in. Well, I jumped in the car and in the back seat of their car to get in, and there was car seats for the kids in the back seat, so I was sitting on top of car seats. But when I got there, there were people everywhere and people praying and people searching. You could hear people talking and flashlights everywhere because by then it was dark, and John was outside, and I think I've said that to you before. Well, he was leaning up against his truck, and the light from the house, the outside light from the house, kind of silhouetted him. And I wish I would have taken a picture of it, but at that time I thought it was a little inappropriate. But he was in prayer, just with his hands, like, on top of the hood of the truck, praying, and there were people kind of everywhere praying, and you feel so helpless. Like, what do you want me to do? I don't know what to do. I can help search. Well, our cousin Mike was also there, and he came along and said, "Well, let's go look at this in the cemetery across the road." So Mike and I and one of Mike's friends, we all had flashlights, and we just went behind row after row of tombstones, looking all the way around them.
Mm,
Um, and then I guess they had put it on Facebook too, that people look in your backyards, so there were people out in their yards looking at the outbuildings that they had. Um, and I don't know if they had on the radio or not. I can't remember if they did or not. But anyway, there was lots going on, but the kind of the helplessness that you feel because you want to do something and you want to see results.
mhm.
And looking, and as we were in the cemetery looking, there were people down in the ravines, and we could see flashlights and people in the ravines looking. And there was across the street of John and Nancy's, there were some young kids there, and the little 10-year-old boy was out looking too, and he had a flashlight and he was out looking.
Mm.
So a lot of prayers going on, and a lot of feeling of helplessness, and God, where is she? Come
Yeah.
on, God, where is she?
Another huge part of the story for me that makes it so captivating is that part of this massive rescue operation that included local townspeople, neighbors, 10-year-old kids, family members, the the local rescue, the fire, the police, all the there is a high-tech Amish, that's right, I said high-tech Amish Mennonite rescue group from the Christian Aid Society that handles a lot of these kinds of cases around this part of the country. They have the most, I'm told, they have the most high tech water rescue equipment in 5 states. And so they're always running around from state to state to help people rescue people, to try to find people and rescue people. And they told me, sadly, most of the time it's a recovery operation. They pray like crazy that it's going to be something besides a recovery operation. We're not going to get any Amish people to come on camera, unfortunately, because that's one of the things they don't do. However, what they told me was that statistically they could not have expected necessarily, besides any with anything other than faith, to find Nancy alive. And again, it's not a spoiler. You're here, so you know how it ends. Um, but just comment on that just a little bit, John and Nancy. Those Amish Mennonites.
Well, these Amish Mennonites, I did not know about, although when I was young, growing up in my parents' home, their their center in Tampico was just about 5 miles down the road from my home place. So when I realized that there were these, when I realized that there was this group that were in the search, I found out this, when they found me. But there were two men from the Amish um, Christian
Ministry.
ministry. Oh, what am I
Search.
saying? What is the name? Christian
Christian
Ministries,
Aid.
Christian Aid Ministries. When they came down the hill for me, they were speaking in their um, tongue, their German tongue.
Mm,
And I knew that because their Christian or their one room schoolhouse was across the road from mine. And
mm,
I sometimes would play with Amish little girls when I was a little girl. So
mm.
I had heard this before. And I said, when they came down to me and said, Nancy, we're here to rescue you. I said, "Where are you guys from?" And he said, "We're from Tampico." And I go, "I'm from Tampico." And I thought later on I find out about their rescue ministry and things like that.
Yeah.
But I had no idea at that time. But for them to come from Tampico, from 5 miles from where I grew up, to come rescue me on the hill and save my life. I thought, God, you did a wonderful thing in this. You did an
Yeah.
absolutely wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
It was kind
Yeah.
of
That's so
interesting
neat.
when they. I'm not for sure who called them to get them involved in this, but they pulled in with a pickup truck and a trailer behind it. Went up in through our yard, came back down in around and parked it in a waterway directly behind our house. And to begin with, there was only a few, but they just kept streaming in. Every once in a while, I would see one of them walk past the end of the house out to their trailer, and it was really pretty neat to to see these guys walking in. The one
Yeah.
guy that I remember coming in had like a bundle of rope on his shoulder, on a mission, walking past and out their trailer. But it was that was pretty amazing.
So, Carol, tell me about just why this book? Why were you so why was it such an urgent project for you to see this done?
I started thinking about it once everything was all done and Nancy was on her way to Peoria and John was heading out, and I took their dog home with me for a couple of weeks. And it played it. I couldn't go to sleep when I got home. So I just kept playing it over in my head. And what stuck out to me is the level of stories of Nancy at the bottom of the cliff and her story with her conversation with God when she was awake or had come to. And then there's the story of the people by in John and Nancy's yard, the praying people, the searching people, and how everybody had come together as a community in Wynette. The church choir people just stopped their practice and they all jumped in their cars and they came. Um, and the ministry of the people there trying their best to do what needed to be done. And the people that couldn't get there that were praying from their homes. And then there's the story of the professional searchers and how they interacted with all that was going on. So I thought that there's three levels of stories there, and we're all going trying. Nancy's trying to get wants to get rescued, but she can't move. The people are searching and praying, and the professionals are doing their thing too. Helicopters and heat seekers and drones and all kinds of things going on. And I thought somebody needs to know about this. And it
Mm,
would be at the time when we didn't know how badly Nancy had been hurt, but just to be alive was amazing to me. And as we stood on John's and Nancy's back porch and watched the helicopter lift off and head out, I mean, the cry, John, you and Ben just hugged each other and cried, and we were in a circle and we were praying. The people that were on the back porch, we all got together, and I think at that time your pastor had come back by then, I think, and because he was going somewhere and he heard about it and turned around and came back.
mm,
So it kept rolling around in my head to do this, rolling around in my head. So I started jotting things down, and then I couldn't make it sound the way I wanted to sound. So I started praying, God, I need help. Dear Lord, I need help. And that's when you moved back. And John, I think you said, well, Jeff, remember Jeff, Ben's friend, has moved back and he's a ghostwriter. And I went, thank you, Lord. Let me give me his number.
mm.
That was it was an answer to prayer. So I think this story needs to be told because people who go through hard times need to know God's there with you.
Yeah.
God's with the searchers. Was with Nancy at the bottom. God was with John and the family. Every
Mhm.
every part, God is with us no matter what.
Yeah.
So that's what made me decide I got to do this.
Yeah, and the book doesn't just talk about that day. It goes back in
Right.
flashbacks and scenes of other times in your life where God's teaching you the lessons that were gonna get you through this day, through your both of you having health battles, and there was cancer, and there were heart surgeries, and there were, uh uh, injuries and and all kinds of things. And so it was really neat to help put that together and see what God has done throughout the course of your life to make you the kind of people that would walk through that the way that you did. What do you hope that God is going to do with this book and the Bible study that goes along with it? That's on the website. There's a QR code in the book where the Philippians Bible study is, and what do you hope that God is doing?
Well, through all of our struggles that we've had, God has shown us that He's there in the little stuff and in the big stuff. there's been a lot of big stuff.
Mm.
I, um, I tell people that don't know me that, I personally have the 4 major causes of women's death in the fact that I have, heart disease, I have long-standing diabetes, I've had breast cancer, and now I've had this trauma that I've lived through that God has
And you're a
given me the.
medical professional.
Yeah, exactly, I'm a retired nurse, go figure.
Mhm.
And, I I think there is just such joy in knowing that God has given me grace and mercy through all of that, and He still has a place for me to be,
Mm.
and He hasn't given up on me because I'm kind of a mess. And, and, I still have a place in His kingdom, and I think of other people that are going through difficult things that think that they're not going to make it. Just realize what power they have in the power of God, the power of the great healer, that even though my heart is bad, God knows my heart, and He made my heart, and He can heal my heart. Maybe
Mm.
not completely, but enough to live my life.
It was kind of neat to
Yeah.
in the midst of all of those to see how God showed up.
Mm.
Ha, uh, it when things seemed like it was never going to come out right. Any one of those that she's been through, uh, of how God showed up, of His presence, of His just flooded us with His peace. Um, just the book. I hope people can
Mhm.
grasp that power of His presence, of His love for us, of His care for His people.
Mm.
It was just overwhelming of the way He cared for us in the midst of bad stuff that was going on.
And there's really nothing so very special about me other than I'm a child of the King.
Mm.
I am God's child. He knows my name. And I claim that. I claim the fact that he's my God. He's my healer. He's my deliverer. And if other people can know that and claim that have never claimed that before, they have a place in this world and they have a place in God's kingdom.
Amen. Carol, how about you? What are you hoping God does with the book?
I hope it brings people to the point that no matter where you are in life, God's there. God can rescue you. Whether at your well, the thing I always back to the Princess Bride, the cliffs of insanity. If you're on the
Mhm.
cliff, have you toppled over and you think there's no coming back? Are you sitting at the top with Jesus doing great? That's wonderful. But there's a
Mm.
lot of people that are over the edge, and sometimes they don't have any hope. And I'm hoping that God shows up in the book for them. I don't want them to look at us particularly. I want them to see Jesus through us, through John and Nancy. Um, and that's basically the what I want is to people see Jesus through John and Nancy and their trials and whatever. I also think for Nancy, as we wrote this book, I think it was very cathartic for you, um, because you had to relive it again as
Mm.
we wrote it. Um, and for you, I think that was a good thing, that you got to relive it to see how God had worked in you. I mean, you knew it,
Mm,
but all the details that came along with it and all the people that
mhm,
God had put in place, and it's
yeah.
just very cool.
Yeah. What was that like, Nancy, for you to relive that in the telling, and also when you had to read it? You've had to read the drafts, and what's that like?
Well, I will tell you the first time that we read the book, the very first draft of it, it was when we were on our way to Texas, um, that time, and, we had we had, we were getting close to the end of it, and we had just gotten to our motel and pulled up to, go in and, sign in or register, and, I said, "John, we can't go in now, we're almost at the end, I wanna
To
see
see how
how
it
it
ends.
turns out."
Uh, it
It
was
was so
it was
it
good.
was
I
so we
just
did, we stayed in the parking lot for another half hour reading the book, and that was the first time I cried. Even when I
Mm,
was on the hill, I
mm,
I didn't cry because there was no one there to hear me.
mm,
It was only me and God, and I just didn't feel like, crying, but even after it was when they rescued me, I didn't cry. All of that, I knew I was in God's hands. But
mm.
when I read that book the first time, that was the very first time I cried. And so here
Wow.
we are in the parking lot of the motel. I'm just weeping and wailing and weeping. And I hope nobody wondered what was going on. They probably thought we were
What's that
having
guy
a
doing to her?
moment or something. But it it really it did my heart good to finally cry
Yeah.
over it, and I guess maybe that's when I realized I was I was pretty much in bad shape.
Yeah.
but it
Yep.
was really kind of neat, reading through the book for the first time, that first draft, wanting to know what was gonna happen, and we knew. We
Yeah.
knew we knew what how the story came out, but it was like, "Oh, you gotta keep going
But the book
to
was
Yeah.
see
so
to
well
see what
written,
happens
Jeff,
next." Yeah,
that it made us not want to miss
yeah,
one word or one paragraph, especially at the end. We just had to see it through. We had to read it through.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, it was definitely a team effort between Carol and myself and some beta readers and editors. I
yep.
really like how it's turned out. So you've said all along that everything that you've done with this, all of you, has been just trying to be obedient. You don't know what, you don't have some grand vision for how many books you want to sell or how many people you want to reach. You just know it felt like there was a nudge to put this out there, to let your story be out there. And there's some vulnerable things in the book. I mean, it's a lot for you and your family. Um, so I know that you're thinking of it like I am, which is we just can obey God and say what he says to say and take a step of faith, and then the outcome is totally in his hands.
Right.
We're going to promote it. We're going to tell people about it. We're going to give the book away. We're going to sell the book. We're going to have a website. We're going to have this podcast. And we can totally trust God. He's
Yeah.
reached a lot of people already with this story. We probably can't even count it, starting with the first night and everybody that I hadn't talked to uh, Ben. Ben, your son is and our close friends, Ben and Angie. I hadn't talked to them in so long at that point, and yet I found out about it, you know. And so I mean, it was getting all over the place. So I think so many people have been touched by this already. I
Yeah.
can only imagine how this will allow God to continue moving people. It's such an incredible story. This kind of stuff doesn't happen to everybody.
Yeah.
Congratulations, you get to be the one that it happens to.
Uh,
I'm still here,
But
so it's all okay.
yeah. But as for us at Indie Christian Book, we are so pleased and privileged to be a part of this and to be publishing
Oh,
this with you and spreading this message with you. This is a calling for us. For
no,
myself, I I I started out writing as a hobby, and then it seemed like it's going to become a tent making job for me so that I can do full-time ministry and not have to be paid. And then I realized, no, this is part of my calling. I
no,
could
no.
never reach as many people planting one church at a time as as I can helping people like yourself who God has given a message and a calling, who's taking a step of faith and obedience to put it out there.
yeah.
And and I want to say that about Indie Christian Book. If we can help people to speak the truth that God has given them and speak it boldly, because like Paul says to the Corinthians, we want to share an open statement of the truth, of the gospel, of the goodness of God, of the faithfulness of God, the works of God in our lives. We want people to know him. And so we're so thankful and privileged to be able to work with you guys in this and up to now and going forward. So I can't wait to see what he does.
Yeah.
I love that.